Today we are joined by Rudy Martinez and Manuel Cervantes, and this conversation starts from a tweet that Manny put on Twitter, of course, where he was asking, what makes a person good or bad? Are there good people with bad intentions, and are there bad people with good intentions? And so Rudy and I had a conversation with him on his comments on that post, and we thought it'd be interesting to kind of develop that conversation a little bit more. Manny, would you like to start with any thoughts?
Yeah, so through past experiences, I just, learning what people have to say, think, do, their actions, I guess learning their experiences as well kind of got me to this point. And I was thinking, what makes a person good or bad? You know, what are their intentions in life? What are they trying to do? Um, it- you know, I think it's a pretty good question to ask, and it's an even harder question to answer, because sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow. People don't accept it, and it can be biased. It all comes down to how someone perceives good and bad, and we had that conversation in the Twitter convo.
Yeah, it's challenging because different people have different views on what is good and what is bad. And I think one of the conversations we were having was more relating to how sometimes you're doing the right thing, you're doing something good, but to somebody else it looks bad. So in like that situation, you are the bad guy. And then like there's the opposite when sometimes people are doing bad things, but they look good on the outside to everybody else, so they're perceived as a bad guy.
That's right. Yes. Well, I mean, many times, yes. You're doing something good, but it's taken as bad, or vice versa, and everything. But I think what made me, think a lot more and whatnot was whenever you added the comment of whether, well, I think it was Manuel that added the comment that where the selfishness is bad or good. And well, we'll continue with that conversation, but we'll get back on track to what you had first said. Yeah, bad or good. Honestly, I feel like bad is probably just really like when you don't comprehend each other, or like you miscommunicate something. That's when things go bad, because that's bad for like both parties in the end. But it does all come down to how you perceive it. So
There was a
What
key
about you?
appeal. Oh, sorry.
What about you, Hugo? What do you think? What makes a person good or bad from your experience, your personal opinion on this? Did you
I
hear
think
me?
my question was for Rudy.
no, it was
Well,
for you.
it was for you, definitely for you.
Oh, okay, sweet. Well, okay, so this is kind of what I was going at too, though. There was a Key and Peele sketch a long time ago where two friends were texting each other, and it goes to kind of what Rudy was saying, where the tones were kind of miscommunicated. One friend thought the other friend was being nice, the other one thought he was blowing him off, and canceling plans last minute. And like in each scenario, they thought they were the good and the bad person, and then when they actually met together, like one friend was really pissed, like, you don't want to hang out with me. The other one was like, I thought you were being nice and accommodating to my, changing schedule. So it's difficult for me to say what's good and bad because sometimes I think I'm doing something and I think it's bad, but then it turns out it wasn't as bad as I, originally thought. There's a lot of self policing or something to that nature where like we think, oh, we're doing something bad when it's okay, or you think you're doing something good, and you like continue to tell yourself you're doing something good, but it's definitely not. So sometimes to be able to determine what good or bad is, we have to have conversations with our friends, open up and let them know, like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and things like that to kind of help us gauge how we're doing.
Yeah, and I guess it all boils down to the scenario too, right? Like you just gave a great example as to that Key and Peele skit, and kind of like the little situation they were in, and one of them thought they hated the other. But if we're going a little bit further, what if we're looking into someone that has had a rough past, has had this like not so lavish life, and they've just been like under the ground, just trying to like crawl and just claw their way out. and they think that they're a bad person because of the things they've done and the things they've seen. So um whereas, let's just say you, I mean you, Rudy, and I, I'm not saying that we have, but we've had a better life experience. Does that make us a good person because we haven't done those bad things? I think this is where the real question came from. Is a person bad because of the negative experiences that they've had and because of the things that they think they've done, and do those people deserve bad in their life? You know, I think that's really where the question comes down from. Like, do bad people become bad because of the bad experiences that they've had?
Gotcha. Well, it's not like I think bad people turn bad because of bad experiences and whatnot, but you do have a very, very valid point. Especially when you said that me and you, we have lived better lives than some, or not some, most, I guess. Some, you get the idea. But not necessarily am I gonna say it's like it's always been good. We've had rough
Yeah,
patches.
definitely. I mean, we're not perfect. I mean, no one's gonna be perfect, but
Yes, we've definitely had rough patches, and we've all, us three, just specifically us three at least. I know for sure we can definitely say that we've met some like really uphill battles, and it was very difficult then. And that difficulty and whatnot. I know it was hard for all three of us and whatnot, but the way I see it is like if I'm able to not change myself because of those uphill battles, and I'm not comparing to someone that's completely had a crappy life, like completely bad life, like they actually have more of my respect and whatnot. But I feel like to the people that have had lives like us, that shouldn't necessarily be the ones to change you. And I feel like the people that do change in the end, it kind of is iffy. I guess that's what I'm trying to get to. But we'll just have to see, good or bad. In the end, it's however you perceive it, however you take whatever experiences you've had and whatnot. But let's try not to make them bad, for sure. That's really all I'm trying to say.
So to kind of build off on that, and then to kind of add a question to your question, so is it hitting when you hit rock bottom and what you do coming up with that, like what helps you determine what good and bad is? Because like if you have had a bad life, if you've had a hard time, if you've like seen some really bad things, maybe participate in them, maybe not, does that make you a bad person? Maybe in that instance, but if you can use it to learn and grow and then be better, then I don't know if you're necessarily a bad person or just, a normal or, ordinary person that's trying to be better. In which case I would, absolutely commend them. But I would have to say, like, that growth from rock bottom, that growth from whatever bad moment you were experiencing, like kind of Rudy said, that kind of helps determine your response to that, kind of helps determine, necessarily what, not necessarily, but what kind of person you are. And it just goes back to the complexity of like what kind of person you are is like so broad, and it like that changes over time. But I think at least at a very surface level, we can gauge, okay, this person's been through some really bad things. This is how they've grown from it. And we can really use that to determine what good and bad is, or at least help us think about it.
Well, I do completely agree with whatever you're saying. I do have something to add to that, and that would be that everyone does end up coming back. Everyone that's living so far at least has ended up coming back and grown on it. However, that growth, some people might say it's like, yeah, I grew into a better person and whatnot. But to you, whatever that person may do, it might be a bad. And so it all comes down again to how you perceive it. It's just every single person perceives good and bad very, very differently.
And that goes to like why we had to make this episode in general, because like it is complex to say, okay, this person is good and this person is objectively bad, because like you said, it's all about perception. It kind of goes to something I was talking about earlier, where like you look like you're the bad person here and you look like you're the good person there, but it's the opposite. Depends on who's perceiving it. And that is interesting because it brings like a little bit of karma into play there. And I know for the past couple of weeks, maybe months, I've been asking a couple of different friends what their perceptions of karma was, and we can talk about that in a later episode. But it was interesting to see that, you know, a lot of them thought that if you're going to do good things and you do good things because you feel good about doing good things, then it doesn't necessarily matter. Karma, in a sense, doesn't necessarily matter because you know you're going to be doing good things. It's just that underlying feeling, perhaps, that, you know, when you do good things happen to you. But if you are like generally or genuinely trying to change and genuinely trying to do better for yourself, that I think that's a marker towards trying to solve this complex answer of what is good and bad.
Yes, you do have a point, but here's an example I'm gonna give you. Okay, so let's say you do something. No, let's say that you're gonna. No, someone's holding a fundraiser for someone, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so you intentionally you want to help this person in whatever manner you can, right? But let's say that one of your other friends, that one friend that the fundraiser's for, what if they did something really, really bad to that person? You, in change, helping that person with the fundraiser, it makes you look bad to them, but you think it's good. So where does that, good or bad? I can't really pinpoint what is, what is what.
That probably shows us that we should take our time in judging and assessing situations. Because like if that were to happen, and let's say I was the friend that like had been done dirty, that would say, why are you helping them? You know, like they did bad things, or like, you know, they messed my life up in this way. And it's possible that if I would have stepped out, I mean, not saying I was in this situation, right? But it's possible if like someone like me or someone that's going through this would have stepped out and looked at what was going on. It's like, oh, okay, Rudy was just trying to help a fundraiser. Like, sure, it wasn't for someone that I was, you know, in you know, messed up with or something, you know, in a bad relationship with or something like that. It was like Rudy trying to genuinely help somebody. And looking past that, I think also is another marker towards showing what is good and bad.
What do you got to say to this, Manuel?
And we can't hear him. First, he was going dark, like we couldn't see him.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, I muted
go.
myself. My dog and my cat are fighting over there, so I just muted myself. But I guess, can someone deem themselves good and or bad? You know, we basically said it's based off of perception, but can an individual say, "Hey, I'm bad," or can an individual say, "Hey, I'm good"? Here's the thing: it gets tricky because, as y'all were mentioning right now, their actions are what let other people say this person's good or bad. And so I don't know. I mean, it's super tricky when it comes down to perception, because if it's based off of perception, like you could be both. You could be that good and or bad person, and it kind of sucks, you know? I mean, it really does, to be honest. So being good or bad, I don't know. I mean, should we have a scale? Should we have like a rule stating like, hey, like you're good because of this? Or does it come down to morality, you know? Because all three of us could be hanging out and, you know, we're doing really bad things, but we think we're good because we know each other and we grew up together, and we say, oh no, he's a good guy, you know? And I mean, we could dive into other topics in a different segment, but you know, you can't justify someone being good and then still doing those bad actions. I guess with the next question, can someone be good with bad intentions? You know, or can someone be bad with good intentions? Like, it's a complex scenario to try to play one way in your head. You know, it's not gonna work. There's all these complexities going on that, you know, I don't know. That, I mean, that's why we're having this conversation right now.
I think the answer to that question is probably in and of itself, and like the answer to a lot of this is in and of itself. So that kind of yin and yang component or idea, you know, where like there's some things, there's the white that has a little bit of black, and the black that has a little bit of white, that can stand for, a bad person having a little good in them and a good person having a little bad in them, something like that. I think that is essentially the answer to that question. It's our yin and yang. Like my yin and yang might be a little more on the bad with good, and Rudy's might be more with the bigger on the good and less with the bad. Vice versa. That ratio could be, whatever it is, but that's all our lives kind of are if we think about it in that respect. Like all it is, it's a balancing act of yin and yang, for lack of better terms, that helps determine, what kind, or helps us and the world around us determine what kind of person we are.
Yeah, I like how you did bring up, yin and yang and whatnot, but well, not but, and added karma into this, which brings up basically, like, in a way, philosophies into play into all of this. Yes, you are completely right. Yin and yang really has a lot to do with this. Correct. Some people do have more good than bad, and some people have more bad than good. However, I do completely think that, whether being good or bad is basically how one person thinks of another. And, you might think I'm very, very good or very, very bad. I don't know. I'm not sure. Can't speak for you. Never going to be able to speak for you because, well, at the moment you can talk and you can actually tell me what it is, whatever, right? But, how I perceive myself also comes into play. And I think that's where selfishness also, well, not just selfishness, just how one's perception of themselves comes into play also. Like, what if I think I'm very, very good, very, very bad with just a hint of good? Well, you think, the other way around. Like, what about that?
When you were talking about selfishness, excuse me, earlier, I really wanted to jump on that right now. But the more I think about it, I think I want to make that into next week's episode, just because there's a lot to talk about, like with selfishness and selflessness in and of itself. That can probably be another 30-minute show, honestly. Um, but yes, I like where you're going with the idea of, like, you also have to look inside, and then it's just up to, individual relationships you have with people, where you can determine in your life if that person is good or bad, because in somebody else's life that person might be, vice versa, whatever the opposite is.
Yes, we are all definitely influenced by all of our peers, family, friends. We're all influenced on this person is good or this person is bad. We're all influenced by everyone around us. Not even if it's just our family and friends and peers. It's also just the community around us. Like, I'm gonna put this into play a little bit. I'm an Aggie, and we think the people from UT aren't exactly the best. And guess what? I'm speaking with a person from UT right now, and he thinks it vice versa. Like, come on.
Hey, don't drag me into this because I had nothing to do with it.
No, but that's a really good real life example. When there's like some kind of rivalry, some kind of group rivalry. I mean, it could be college, it could be sports teams or whatever. Oh, that person's bad because he roots for this team or something. Or, oh, the people that go to so and so school aren't so smart or whatever. And that, I mean, you're right. That community influence is a really big factor in how you think of other people being good or bad, because we're subject to societal and time influence on us, that what was bad 50 years ago is not bad anymore, and what was good 50 years ago may not be good anymore, and that changes too. And that, I mean, that adds another level to the complexity of how difficult it is to tell if something's good or bad.
Well, it's kind of like that saying in Latino culture, I guess. It's tell me who's around you and I'll tell you who you are. And I mean, it also boils down to that too. Who you surround yourself with is pretty much who you are, and I guess who you strive to be. And it's not necessarily always that. I mean,
We talked about it earlier. I mean, you sometimes go through some really nasty things in life, and you're shaping who you are. And you might meet some really, not so great people along the way, and they may be great, but like maybe the things you're doing aren't. But that's kind of who you are at the moment, and until you get your life together, I mean, I guess you can eventually be perceived as good. But even then, I mean, you could be like a nice person and you know be doing the bad things. But yeah, I mean, I guess talking about this conversation with all, like, between the three of us, we learned a lot. And perception, that's the key component to this conversation, perception. And it could be a little bit of bias too, because like we might think we're great because we're all friends, but maybe the outsiders like, yeah, I don't like him because man, Ugo has a bigger beer than me, like, yeah, I don't like that. But
you're right.
Let-
Perception.
Go.
Thank you. You're right. Perception and bias, because exactly like you said, like different friend groups, different, whatever groups, they think whatever group they're in is the best or is good. Like they couldn't possibly do anything bad because I'm a part of that group and I don't do bad things, or
so,
something to that nature.
have you ever had anyone come up to you and say, hey, you're a good person, stay away, or hey, you're a good person? Like, I don't know what makes someone say, hey, Ugo, or hey, Rudy, you're a good person, you deserve better, or hey, Ugo, hey, Rudy, you're a bad person, like, get your shit together. Like, I mean, excuse the language, but have you ever had someone do that to you? I know we might be running out of time real quick, but just last question to both of y'all.
Real G's move in silence like lasagna.
Yeah.
That's all.
Exactly. He's totally right. All right, but
Yeah.
quickly to answer whatever your question is, I actually have been told that I'm a good person before. When I used to work in retail, they came up to me and they said, "It's like, yeah, you were a good person because you helped me last time." So in the end, it's the actions that you do, whether that make you good or make you bad. Like, come on, a lot of those customers could have probably told me, it's like, you're a bad person because you didn't help me. You're a bad person because you didn't clean out this part of the store or whatever. Actions make perception.
All right.
And
Yeah.
to build upon what I just said, because real G's do move in silence like lasagna. It's because Rudy, let's go back to your retail example. It's because in silence you were helping somebody out. You were like doing a good person thing, right? So that's why they perceive you as being a good person. Had you not helped them because you were busy or you mean mugged them or something, then you wouldn't be like in that situation, like real G's moving silent with lasagna, you wouldn't be the real G, but you would be something that's moving in silence. And that's how they perceive who you are. That's why a friend will come up to you and say, or a stranger will come up to you and say, wow, you're a good person. And inside you're thinking, well, I do some pretty bad things. I don't know how this person could see me as a good person, but they saw something somewhere that helped them, like that was in silence, that wasn't like overtly out there. As if you were like obviously helping somebody or something, which is possible too. They saw something that helped them, create that version of you, if for them. So that's, I think ultimately that's what that breaks down to.
Cool.
To answer your question, but in general, it keeps breaking down to complexity and perception, and I think that's for now, as far as we can break it down, because like the more we think about it, we're eventually going to start running in circles where it's like, well, it's because this person saw me do this and that's why they think they're good. And then before you know it, you have like 100 different versions of you. Like, to this person I was good in this way, and to this person I was bad in this way. And I guess you could say you are a sum of all of those experiences. Ultimately, it's how you feel. If you feel like you are doing good and you feel good about yourself, as long as you're not hurting anyone, then maybe you are a good person, and it's okay to tell yourself that. On the opposite hand, I mean, we could think of multiple scenarios, but if you think you're a bad person, um, reach out to friends and talk to them and stuff. Don't immediately think you're the worst person, and then figure out what makes you think about that in your life and build to be a better person. Any last closing statements from you two?
No,
Well,
I think
go for it, Manny. I mean, go
no,
for it.
I don't think I have anything. It's all you, Rudy.
All right. So, I mean, all I can really say is, well, he's already stated it plenty of times. It all comes down to perception, all comes down to actions and whatnot. But really, really, in the end, it does it always, winds down to you, to how you feel about yourself, to how you did this and how you did that. It always comes down to you, and it's a self type of thing.
Yep. I mean, all this world ever is what we are perceiving and like what information we're consuming. So ultimately, that's all we can rely on. I love the hat. It's a nice way to end the conversation. You
Right.
started out by being, like really dark because you were outside, and then we can hear you, and now you come back with a festive hat. So I dig it. I dig it. Very successful.
Yeah.
Thank you two for coming on. Remember, everyone, we are not experts. We are three friends trying to think about the world in a more philosophical way. Hopefully, you enjoyed this little conversation and got ideas of your own. And if you would like to share it with us or with me, I would love to hear it. With that being said, thank you, Rudy. Thank you, Manny. I will see you guys later.